We're now going to talk a bit about the 2025 roadmap because we have some major problems coming our way. Still, we're going to discuss what's going on here, how things are running, and what I expect. And trust me, this video will give you tremendous value. But before we get into that, I need a like and a comment from you. Once I have that, we'll continue talking about Bitcoin. We'll briefly touch on the chart analysis, but not for long. After that, we'll address the subtopics, and then I'll explain to you how the coming months will unfold. From a technical analysis perspective, it looks like this. Down here we have the RSI, and here we've established a support zone, and it looks like we're back there again. It would be good if we encounter resistance here and continue to rise. As long as that happens, the next step would be seeing $108,000, $109,000. If we break through here, I expect different price targets, because I'll show you the whole thing. In that case, if we break through the RSI, I expect that we'll test this area again, and only then see the upward trend, meaning we'll see this zone here at $98,000 once more. Basically, from a technical analysis perspective, we've also established a support zone here, which is still holding at the moment. We can imagine that we might test this area again and then continue to rise. It will get interesting here, depending on whether we break out to the downside or the upside. If we break out to the upside, we would surpass the all-time high. That would tend to suggest that the altcoins would perform really well and that we might see a stronger push. Maybe we would then get closer and closer to $120,000. That could happen relatively quickly. Otherwise, there are two scenarios. The first scenario is we break through this resistance zone, test it again, and continue to rise. That means breaking through here gives us an 85% probability that we will rise at first, provided we break through properly here. The other possibility would be that we break through this level. If we break through that, we would find resistance down here and see the reversal here. This would be one scenario. The other scenario would basically be that we break through here, encounter resistance here, rise, test it again, and continue to rise. And I don't want to read in the comments, yeah, you're saying it could go either up or down. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if we break through here, we'll see $109,000. But I'm saying if we break through the $102,000 mark to the downside here, we'll see $98,000. That means another 2% lower. And from there, we would first see an upward trend. You could already trade this small step with 50 times leverage. In my opinion, that would easily be 100%. That's my Bitcoin outlook, how I see things for the next few days. From a heat map perspective, that definitely makes sense too, because we can see a lot of liquidity building up right here at $108,000. So it's not unlikely that we'll break through to the upside. But we can also clearly see that there's still a bit of liquidity at 102, quite a lot of liquidity at $100. And again here at $98,000, there's more liquidity behind that as well. That's why both possibilities exist. The distance to both is almost the same. So whether the market makers push us down or up, it almost doesn't make a difference anymore. So we've covered Bitcoin now. Now let's talk about the global economy and what's going on here. It really looks terrible when you look at this list. An escalating war in Iran against Israel, and that's really not a small war either. That could get ugly pretty quickly. Even though we're talking about financial products here, I just wish for peace and the best for the world, and I really hope this war ends. This issue could turn into something very big. It could really become a full-blown war. We've now also seen that Iran has struck back significantly against Israel. Iran attacked Tel Aviv, and here you have to say, either both sides, leave it at that. Israel attacked once, Iran struck back once, so they're even. We saw the same thing with Lebanon. Lebanon also struck back once, and both sides were even. But if we really see this continue and drag on like in Ukraine for 2 or 3 years, it will definitely have a negative impact on the global economy, and that will affect oil. We've already seen oil prices rise by nearly 40%, and that's just in the last 6 months. This leads to higher inflation. US tariffs are at an almost 100-year high. This will probably also lead to higher inflation. The Fed is delaying interest rate cuts. The yield on 10-year government bonds is almost 5%. There's a tightening of the debt ceiling. As you can see, these are all things that, quite frankly, really don't sound very good at all. It sounds like we're living in a broken world, and that's exactly how it is. That doesn't really sound like bull run, but strangely enough, we're still comfortably sitting at $105,000. And that's because we're getting global liquidity. So you see, sure, economically there are a few problems, this and that. But friends, nobody cares. Because we're still going up. We're still in a good position. And why are we in such a good position? Because we are simply seeing a global expansion of money here. Almost nobody cares. Because when the market gets more liquidity, we automatically go up. And strangely enough, the money is currently finding its way into the crypto market even proportionally, much more nowadays than into the stock markets. And if we look at the M2 gate supply, we can see that we're moving identically. I've shifted it here exactly 86 days. So about 2 or 3 months. And just look at it. We do have a delay. But look at how identical it is. This was the bottom. From here, that was also the Bitcoin bottom. Look at how we've risen. We've risen in exactly the same way. And right here in this phase where we've just had a correction, we also had a correction in the M2 gate supply, a correction in the upward trend. We're moving almost identically. But what you can also gather from this is yeah, if things just keep going the way they have, we'll end up at least $140,000, $150,000. And that's without entering an overheated zone. If it keeps rising in the background like it is now, we could definitely be looking at $200,000 for Bitcoin. And the great thing here is we're still nowhere near the overheated zone. Back then, we were partly in the overheated zone, but as we can see, we're still far from that right now, which is extremely positive. That means Bitcoin is very, very likely to reach $150,000 to $150,000 just by continuing to follow the money supply. If we then also get a phase of euphoria and retail investors join in, things could look very different again, because right now we can clearly see that retail investors have given up. There was always a correlation between the Bitcoin price and retail investors. You can see it here. Here in green, retail investors were especially buying in again. That was really the time. Currently, we've had another upward trend here. Retail hasn't really reacted. Retail investors have now given up. That's how extreme it's become. And that's a good thing. We can also see it in the Google search query share. Even if we're at $150,000, nothing new is coming in. We're just stuck here. Retail has given up, yet we're still in such a good position. Here too, we have a chart where we can see when retail is buying. With the ETFs, we saw a bit of that back then, but right now we're still really far from that. At the moment, as you can see here, there's basically no retail at all. It even says here we're in the neutral zone. We simply don't have any retail in the market here. Here we can also see who's currently buying spot. In red, we saw a bit of retail here, but overall, it's the whales, the smart money who are buying here. These are things that make me extremely optimistic, because just think about it. Purely based on the M2 money supply, we could reach $140,000 simply because we're getting fresh liquidity in here. If we now also see that retail is coming back, that we simply see 3 or 4 times as much as in the last cycle, that we see retail following the price again, that we see retail buying spot as well, that we see retail trading again, really entering the market and bringing us liquidity, then we could easily see price targets of $200,000 in this cycle. It's really not unrealistic. As I said, if the M2 money supply just keeps increasing like this, then things will get really interesting, because we're simply getting more and more liquidity every day. And there's another extremely big factor that we've completely left out so far. That's what we're going to talk about now. We're seeing a trend here where Bitcoin reserves on the exchanges are becoming extremely scarce. All the Bitcoins are being taken off the exchanges. That means we're seeing increasing scarcity here. Just take a look at this. Fewer and fewer Bitcoins are available. In addition, we see that the OTC desks are getting emptier and emptier. All the ETFs, or even Michael Saylor, they're all buying Bitcoins OTC. Why are they doing that? Because otherwise the market would be impacted too much. But here we can clearly see that by now, if you look at the trend, there are hardly any OTC Bitcoins available anymore. Even here, we're already experiencing massive scarcity. And now comes what I absolutely want to show you. We're also seeing more and more companies like Michael Saylor investing millions, if not billions of dollars into Bitcoin. More and more companies are doing exactly the same thing as Michael Saylor. Either they invest with surplus corporate profits, or they take out really large loans and invest in Bitcoin through their companies. That means more and more Bitcoin is being bought up here. And if we no longer had any Bitcoins available OTC, plus the scarcity we're already experiencing, then we'd be facing a worst case scenario. Because what most people don't even realize is that it's actually not that hard to push the Bitcoin price up if you were to buy all of this on the exchanges. That's exactly why BlackRock and Michael Saylor deliberately don't do that. To increase the Bitcoin price by 2% on Binance, you'd only need $31 million. Compared to the size of this market, that's nothing at all. But now I've looked at this in relation to all markets, because this is our current Bitcoin price. And to increase the price by 2%, we would need about $540 million. That would mean we'd have raised it by 2% on all exchanges. Not just one, but on all of them. That's the amount of money we would need. We see that someone like Michael Saylor sometimes invests $2 billion in Bitcoin in one go. Up until now, he has always done this only OTC. If soon OTC no longer works because there are no more Bitcoins available there, he'll have to buy the Bitcoins on the open market. And if he does that with $2 billion, then within minutes, we'll see a price increase of 7.4% on all exchanges. That means we'd be at $112,000. And Michael Saylor does this sometimes weekly or several times a month. Then all the other companies will join in, as well as the spot ETFs. What we've built up here with Bitcoin over the past few years is seriously massive. And in the long run, Bitcoin only knows one direction. Will there be short-term corrections? Yes, that's possible, but in the long term, well, if you're not optimistic here, then I really can't help you anymore. And at this point, friends, I want to sincerely thank you all. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time. Bye.